Yeah, okay, so, then the US is going to back Israel when this happens. What does that backing look like? What does it mean when we're going to support Israel? We won't let Israel lose. What does that
Right.
mean for the United States? Does that
Well,
mean that troops on the ground, naval
yeah,
bombardments,
yeah.
airstrikes? What are we talking about?
Right. I think you were talking about naval bombardments and above all airstrikes. That's what it would be, and it would not be troops on the ground. Um, Reagan actually made that mistake back during the first Lebanon invasion in the early 1980s, and that's of course there was a bombing of the Marine barracks that led to the deaths of something like 250 U.S. Marines, and he very wisely, it was a stupid decision to go in there, but he pretty quickly decided, well, this was a stupid decision, and he pulled out. It seems like we can't really do that anymore. We always double down. Um,
Well,
and so, yeah, uh, I think they're going to do whatever they can. I don't see troops on the ground, but they certainly could do, yeah, provide naval and air support. And actually, there is a recent report that there are rushing air defense capabilities to Israel. And I think because a lot of holes have been poked in the air defense system in northern Israel, and everyone is aware that of the formidable arsenal that Hezbollah has that could really overwhelm the systems that they have. So the U.S. apparently is sending some of their air defense systems. I don't think it's the Patriot system, which
yeah, I was about to say, you said that they
right,
mothballed the Patriot system,
right,
so
right.
what are we sending,
Yeah, it's a couple of systems I'm not familiar with, but they're sending them there, and we'll see.
How effective do you think even naval bombardments and airstrikes would be in fighting a force like Hezbollah?
I don't think it would be very effective. Look what's happened in Yemen. We've
That's what I
been
was about to say. The
bombing them for
Houthis,
like the last
right?
6 months or so, and they're still. Just the other day, they sunk another ship.
I heard a Greek
Right.
vessel.
So yeah, and again, Yemen is just so much poorer and weaker than Hezbollah is. And Hezbollah, again, has been preparing for this for well over a decade. And my
Hmm.
understanding is that like Hamas, they've got a lot of their facilities underground, and these air superiority can only do so much. It can't really do very much at all uh, when your enemy is underground.
And also, I mean, well, won't Hezbollah just turn its missiles onto the U.S. Navy and sink
Well,
some
there's a
U.S.
risk of that. There
battleships?
certainly is. Or, they've actually threatened, um, or it was Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader, um, threatened Cyprus because, Cyprus is a very close ally of Israel and
Hmm.
provides, a lot of support, logistical support to Israel and to the U.S. And he said, well, if you're providing support to attacks on Lebanon, well, in the past we couldn't do anything about it, but we can do something now. In other words, they have missiles that can reach Cyprus, so yeah, certainly they could strike ships, and they have threatened to do that.
Okay, so this could happen soon, right? Let's just kind of play. Let's just play this out.
Okay,
Israel goes in, starts to carpet bomb Beirut, comes in with the ground force. All of a sudden, Hezbollah unleashes missile barrages and drones. We might see something similar like what Iran did, overwhelms the air defense systems. Rockets rain down on Tel Aviv, potentially the population center, not just military targets. If Israel bombs Beirut,
right.
the U.S. comes in and starts bombing Lebanon from the sea with its and carrying out airstrikes with its aircraft carriers and bases in the Middle East. Then Hezbollah can sink some of these ships. Now what happens? And what will Iran and Russia and China do as this thing escalates? How do you this can get
Uh-huh.
very dangerous very quick.
Yeah.
It's scary. So can you maybe map out your likely
Well,
scenario? I know
yeah,
there's
yeah,
an infinite
yeah,
number of variables that will turn it in different directions, but
yeah. Right. Nobody knows what will happen, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like what do you say? There's never a plan that survives. In war, plan never actually survives the first day of contact with the enemy.
right, right. Everything just goes
Right.
out the window.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
right. It's just chaos, because the thing is, the enemy has to say what you want to do. You can draw up plans, but the enemy's got a plan. You don't know what it is, and then and your plans collide, and who knows what the
Well,
chaos ensues. But anyway, yeah. Well, I guess first I'd say that we don't know that they're going to start off with a bombardment of Beirut. That maybe they will focus on military targets. That's that would be the professional thing to do, but we just don't know with the Israelis. I mean, we've if they go after Hezbollah in the way that they went after Hamas, then yeah, they might start off by carpet bombing Beirut because we know that so-called war has really been an attack on the civilian population. So there's no reason that they couldn't do that in Lebanon, but we don't know that they will. Maybe they will be more focused on military objectives. We'll see. Um, but in any case, yeah, if it's a major attack, um, I I think you would see a, a calibrated response. If um, the Hezbollah, I don't think would go all out, like would release, go straight to a total retaliation, but they would certainly escalate and they would strike probably, military bases, let's say, for example, like air bases or whatever around Haifa or whatever, and do real damage. It'd be different from the Iranian attack because that was really just kind of a show. That's what that was all about. This is we're letting you know what we can do. We're not doing it now, but I think if Israel really attacks in a major way, Hezbollah's retaliation will inflict serious damage. It's not going to be show. It's going to be a real escalation, and then we could just go up that escalatory ladder, to the point where yeah, Israel begins to, well, we begin to see the possibility anyway that Israel could lose. Now, in something similar happened in 1973. It was the Yom Kippur War, in which for a while it looked like Israel actually could lose. They were put on their back foot, against the Syrian and Egyptian armies. And the U.S. interviewed not directly, but in that case by flooding Israel, supplying Israel with massive amounts of equipment to help them turn the tide, and then they did, right? But it scared them, it was sort of a close call, or it seemed to be for a while anyway. Um, Now in this case, but I think he actually in that war, I mean, the fighting took place on the front lines. It wasn't brought home, to the population centers, to Tel Aviv, for example. But this really could strike Tel Aviv, and this is something, again, we've talked about Israel is they're obsessed with this, with maintaining uh, their deterrence. In other words, they want to maintain this image of invincibility and of having this capability um, of wielding, just or wreaking horrific destruction in anybody who dares to challenge them. And now, if you see, let's say Tel Aviv in flames or Haifa, burning, um, that is going to be, a psychological blow much greater than, well, what we saw on October 7th. That obviously really struck the Israeli psyche and has led to the carnage that ensued. So if that happens, I don't know. Israel itself, if it hadn't at that point started carpet bombing Beirut, I think it probably would. And, in a really attempt to bomb Lebanon back to the Stone Age. And then the screams back in the U.S., the pressure on the U.S. administration to intervene would be, I think, just impossible to resist in that case, and then we would intervene. And I think again, it would just be, um, you know, so, um, with our Air Force and and quite possibly with the Navy as well. But I doubt that it really would do very much. I don't. That's the thing, I
mm,
think again we saw what happened in Yemen. I mean, it just um, to really defeat Hezbollah, you'd have to go in on the ground with battle-hardened troops that are well-trained for, rooting people out of tunnels. And I don't think Israel or the U.S. has those kind of troops. So then we're just looking at a mess. Um, well, I don't see Russia or China, intervening directly. They would put all kinds of diplomatic pressure, but that's all. I think all that they could do. Um, but possibly Iran. I don't know. They're very cautious, actually. They're very careful, but they are very closely allied with Hezbollah. They have very strong ties to Hezbollah.
Hmm.
And I don't think Iran would take the first step, but it may be that Israel would say, if they see themselves losing, then this is the time to make it a general war, and make sure that the U.S. Commits itself totally. So they may do something like what they did, in when they took out that consulate attached to the embassy in Damascus, some sort of provocation which would be almost sure to bring in the Iranians. Um, and then, yeah, then we have just a general regional war, and I don't even want to say what that would mean.